All right, we are now live on YouTube. I am going to get us started. My name is Richie Gallucci. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Revere Public Schools. I want to thank everyone who's joined us this evening. All right, we are now live on YouTube. I am going to get us started. My name is Richie Gallucci. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Revere Public Schools. Sorry, this is my first time. I'm getting a little feedback. I am going to get us started. We have three great presenters tonight. Of course, our middle school principals, Miss Willette from the Susan B. Anthony Middle School, Miss Bob from the Romney Marsh Academy, and Mr. Paczynski from the Garfield Middle School. I want to thank Juliana Cardona and Jacqueline Youssef, who are serving as our interpreters tonight. If you need interpretation, on the lower right-hand corner of the Zoom webinar, you can pick either Spanish or Portuguese. If you do not need translation, you should be all set and ready to go. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Paczynski to kick off our mastery-based grading town hall for our middle schools.
All right, so actually, I'm going to begin tonight. So thank you, Dr. Gallucci, and thank you everyone for attending the presentation tonight. My name is Joanne Willette. As Dr. Gallucci mentioned, I'm principal of the Susan B. Anthony Middle School, and I'm here tonight with my colleagues, Mr. Paczynski and Mrs. Bob. And tonight we are here to speak about or present the second middle school virtual town hall on mastery-based grading. Our goals for tonight's presentation are that participants will be able to understand the reasoning for mastery-based grading, and participants will understand how mastery-based grading is reflected on your child's progress report. Our agenda for tonight that we will be discussing this evening are a review of the Director's Town Hall topics that were discussed back on October 23rd, the work of the Revere Public School Grading Committee, an overview of mastery-based grading, a look at PowerSchool and the quick lookup screens that you can view through PowerSchool, understanding your student's progress report, an overview of the honors distinction, and sharing of the trimesters and reporting timelines. All right, so some of the challenges with traditional grading practices with an A through F scale is that the grade is based on some sort of combination of a student's achievement, effort, behavior, participation, and compliance with classroom rules and policies. All of these things are important, but one of the challenges when putting them all together is that meeting sometimes gets lost in the next steps that students have to take to improve their grade or clarify some of the misunderstandings is not always clear for the student. Another challenge is that the student's focus is on performing and what they have to do to get a good grade, or how they're working to get more points. The focus and emphasis is not on learning as it should be. Feedback the student gets on the one grade at the end of a marking period or the one grade on an assignment may be unclear, and the next steps that the student has to take is sometimes unknown. So certain practices often cause students to lose hope and they can give up. For example, when students get a low grade on a test or when all the grades are averaged together, those practices make it or seem to make reality where students can, the reality that the students may not be able to pass for a certain marking period can be really discouraging for students. And those are some of the drawbacks to the traditional grading that we've been using for years. So the traditional grading system was designed over 100 years ago. It was a different time period. It relies a lot on external rewards and punishments, and many of these practices of the traditional style of grading runs counter to the current research and the current understandings of motivation, learning, and feedback of what works best. So Revere Public Schools has been engaged in standards-based work for quite some time. And the Revere Public School Grading Committee has been working together for over 5 years with ongoing professional development for all of our staff. As you may be aware, we've been using and reporting students' grades at the elementary level via standards-based report cards for years at grades K through 2. And then for the past 3 years, we've moved to standards-based grading at grades 3 through 5. We've also developed a habits of work rubric at the middle school level, and will be the third year that we're reporting students' work habits separate from academic progress. Habits of work assess how students interact with each other, how students approach learning challenges, and how students participate in class. While habits of work did not appear on this current progress report that was just sent home on Friday, they will be reported out on report cards.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Bob, principal at the RMA, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what mastery-based grading is and what it means. So mastery-based grading is sometimes also called competency-based grading or proficiency-based grading. And it's an assessment of how your student is actually performing academically compared to the skills and standards for their grade level. And so it's an opportunity for academic feedback and is separate from those habits of work that Mrs. Willett just spoke to in terms of working for performance and compliance as opposed to what their actual academic skill level is. And so you will see on the report card that the grading is going to be separated into those two key areas. The mastery-based grading speaks to the academic piece. And so with this model, students actually have the set of grade level standards that they're working toward. There are skills embedded in learning those standards. And this system gives students multiple opportunities to demonstrate mastery. One of the goals of this approach is that students get an individualized understanding of what their actual academic strengths are and what the next steps are, what necessary next steps there are to actually achieve that mastery, as opposed to getting, say, a D or a C and not really having an idea as to what that means and what their actual academic strengths are. So on the progress reports that went home, you saw the first 3 columns if you're looking at this from left to right. And so this is the grading scale and language that we're using as part of this mastery-based system. And so this has nothing to do with the typical or traditional A through F rating system. This is something, so each one of these boxes has its own meaning and as it aligns with the mastery-based grading. So if you were to see, and Mr. Paczynski will explain when he shows a sample progress report, but there are 5 ratings. An NA would signify on a progress report or a report card that the student's total body of work really couldn't be assessed because there was insufficient evidence, meaning the student really didn't complete assignments in a way that would make the teacher able to create an overall assessment of their progress. And NY means that the student is not yet meeting the competency for that particular content. Approaching the competency on an overall report card or progress report grade means that the student may have met the majority of the benchmarks in a standard or a content area, but has only partially met them. The initial goal is for the student to meet the competency. So CO means that your student is right where they should be. They've met the competency for that class and for all of the standards and skills embedded in that class. Exceeding the competency, EC, gives students an opportunity to demonstrate a broader depth of knowledge or analysis in a given skill or standard. And so that's sort of the overall. On the classroom assessments and assignments, these have similar meanings in that, and approaching the competency would mean that the student within a given timeline maybe hasn't yet demonstrated competency and either needs more time or needs more support from the teacher. So the initial goal, again, is to meet the competency, and that's what we are aiming for with all of our students. In PowerSchool and on every assignment, teachers are going to assign one of these 3 categories. So all of the assignments within a class are going to be tagged as either skills and practice, formative assessment, or summative assessment. So as a new skill or concept is being introduced by the teacher, students are going to be given multiple opportunities to practice that new skill. And so that may be along with the teacher after the teacher has modeled an assignment or a skill, and then the teachers are practicing through homework or classwork. And so these are pretty low stake. And for that reason, it's going to be the smallest determining factor in the student's overall mastery level. Along the way, there will also be formative assessments, which will give students an opportunity to independently practice some of these skills, work with a group, and have their independent contribution to that group analyzed and assessed. And so that gives the teacher sort of a broader picture as to where the student stands in terms of how they are meeting or approaching that competency. The summative assessments are the largest portion or the most significant portion in determining whether the student is competent. This is the student's ability to independently show mastery for a particular standard. And so that's the largest factor in determining the grade. And again, for students who are able to demonstrate competency, in order to exceed that competency, they would have to demonstrate a broader depth of knowledge or analysis in that given standard.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Mr. Paczynski. I'm the principal of the Garfield Middle School. I'd like to thank Ms. Willett and Mrs. Bob for, leading us in the review of the meeting and mastery-based grading. And my job tonight is to hopefully provide some clarity on what this looks like on your child's progress report and help to interpret that. Again, everyone should have received the progress report on Friday. If you have not, please be sure to call the school tomorrow and upgrade your information. But as Mrs. Bob said, there are three types of assessments. There's the skills and practice, there's the formative, and the summative. On top of that, each assessment is aligned to a mastery or to a standard, and each standard has a number of different benchmarks, and each assessment might be aligned to more than one benchmark. And again, the purpose for this and for mastery-based grading and competency-based grading is to provide students with more clear understanding of the next steps that they need to do to, one, reach the competency, as well as hopefully exceed it and move beyond. So when logging into PowerSchool, should see the quick lookup screen, which will look similar to this. And you'll notice that there's a T1 and a semester 1 grade. I'll use my little mouse here to show you. So you'll see that the grades come in. This student right here has a CO for competency, AC for approaching competency. We have a NY. And one thing, so with this screen, this is a reflection of where the student is in reaching the competency at this point in time based on the standards that have been assessed. So again, this may change over the next couple of weeks. And the other thing I want to reiterate is that approaching competency and not yet are not negative. This is a natural part of the learning process. If a student is showing not attempted, again, that's where work and assignments and assessments aren't being completed, that I would really recommend that you speak with the student, with the child, and encourage them to continue doing the work. For the T1, these grades will be the 4 core classes of English, social studies, science, and math. And semesters are the specials courses. So these include art, technology, wellness, and et cetera. Now, once you're in this screen, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up for a second. Say if I go to English Language Arts to Miss Mann's class, and I see they're approaching competency, if I click the AC, it will then take me into the score page. And there are a couple of things you want to take a note of here. Is in the first part is the category, and this is going to tell you what type of assessment it was. Was it skills and practice? Was it formative? Or was it a summative assessment? And again, skills and practice and formatives may be examples of work done with a teacher. They may be in group work. And the summative is really where the student demonstrates and has the opportunity to demonstrate independently that they have reached the competency. Under assignment, you'll see that each one is aligned with the standard. That's where you might see RL1, RL3. This is, since we're in an ELA class, would be Reading and Literacy 3, with a short description of what the assignment was, such as character trait puzzle, close reading. So that gives you a little bit more of a description and understanding of the benchmark of the standard, as well as, again, a description. Was this a quiz? Was this an activator or do now? I'm going to ask that you actually ignore the score, and I'm sorry, I put my notes, the score and percentage column, because in mastery-based grading and competency-based grading, we're not having averages. There's not an algorithm that applies to this. So there's no numerical average as we've seen in traditional grading. And then with the final grade is the letter grade of not attempted to approaching, all the way up to exceeding competency. So again, on Friday, you should have electronically received a copy of your child's or student's progress report. And this is an example of what it would look like. So what you'll see on this, again, is the T1 grade, which again reflects where the student is at this time with the standards that have currently been assessed. Again, if they have not yet met them or not, again, not yet or approaching, these aren't negative. We expect the student is not going to attain the competency and everything. Again, where I would get concerned is to see an NA, which is not attempted. And that's certainly, we want to talk with the student and find out why they are not submitting assignments. Again, the semester grade will be for electives, in this case, math using technology and technology 1. And the last column here you'll see are the absences, and this is the amount of times that the student has not logged into their class at this time. There might be a number of different reasons for this. Certainly, we want to make sure our students are engaging with their teachers and logging in for the synchronous learning times assigned. One more note that I would really like to highlight on this page with the progress report is the last sentence, is that if you have any questions, that this is a great time to please reach out to your student's teacher, to the child's teacher, and ask about this. We have parent conferences running for the next 2 weeks from November 2nd on. However, regardless, you can call anytime, reach out to your teacher, call the school, because we certainly want to keep open communication in order to support our students and make sure that they're succeeding. There's the big question of honors distinction that Revere Public Schools is detracked this year. However, that still means that students do have the opportunity to earn an honors distinction. Once a student has met the competency, that we encourage them to continue working towards exceeding it or demonstrate a deeper understanding or deeper growth or making further connections across the standards, solving complex problems in multiple ways, and demonstrating mastery that goes above what that grade level standard is. So a student might demonstrate exceeding competency on a couple of assessments, maybe not all of them. However, at the end of the year, if the student has demonstrated exceeding competency for the entire year, that will earn them an honors distinction for that class. Teachers have been working this year and through the summer and continue working cross-district and collaboratively within their building, in their content levels and grade levels to calibrate these assessments. And again, this is a great time to say that if you have any questions regarding this, to reach out to your student's teacher, and they'll be able to speak further to this honors distinction. In December, we'll be wrapping up our first trimester. Right now, we're midway through, which is why we're having this meeting and trying to provide more clarity into the changes in grading practices. But in December, the report cards will come out, and as I believe either Ms. Bob or Mr. Willett said, that there will be 2 reports on this, the academic mastery and the habits of work. Academic mastery is what I just walked you through. So that will be the not attempted through exceeding. And again, our goal is for the student to reach and attain competency and demonstrate competency in that standard. And the second will be the habits of work, which again, we're in our 3rd year of implementing. Again, so we're midway through our first trimester. We'll end trimester 1 on December 13th. The second trimester will go into March 23rd, and the third through the fall, through the end of the year. Semesters, which are again for our specials classes, being art, technology, phys ed, those will be reported on the semester mark, which is February 3rd and June 18th. Now, as we near the end of the first trimester, each school, the SBA, RMA, and Garfield Middle, will be hosting a parent night for our individual schools to answer more specific questions and provide any clarity or answer any questions after that. So I hope I provided, and that the three of us provided, some clarity in understanding the progress reports and what mastery-based grading looks like via PowerSchool and the reasoning for that. And this would be the time that I turn this back to Dr. Gallucci with any questions or to field anything taking place in the chat.
Hello, everyone. So if you have a question and would like to ask the panel, could you please use the raise hand function and I will enable you to speak. If you feel more comfortable typing, you can also type in the Q&A as well. All right, we have a question from Anna Picardi.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for taking the time.
So my question is about the mastery. So I'm unclear on, is a student is no longer an honor student if they don't exceed competency in every assignment? Is that correct? Or how is that determined? Is it every assignment they have to exceed competency, and will there be extra work always given, or does the student have to say, I would like some additional work so I can exceed competency?
I can try to answer that one. So to earn honors distinction, it's really not about doing extra work. It's about doing more in-depth work. So there will be opportunities on assignments, particularly on summatives and formatives, where students will have an opportunity to display or exhibit a deeper knowledge of material. And students will have that opportunity to demonstrate this knowledge throughout the course of the trimester. And it wouldn't have to be on every assignment, but this teacher will be able to assess a student's depth of knowledge throughout the trimester, and then determine at the end of the trimester if the student has demonstrated enough work or enough mastery to earn that honors distinction for each trimester. So it would happen at each trimester.
To jump on top of that, to add with Ms. Willett, I would say as well, for the student to demonstrate a deeper breadth of knowledge and understanding and connections with the material, that this is a great opportunity as well for students to take advantage of the small group time and office hours that teachers have available to them. So again, if a student's struggling to understand a concept, that students will be invited, and the expectation for them to go to those. But also if a student's engaged in the material and finds this really exciting and they want to move beyond that or demonstrate further, that the office hours and small group time might be a great opportunity for them to work with that teacher.
And as Mr. Paczynski said, we'll be holding an additional town hall or virtual meetings with families in December. And at that time, we plan to have some examples of student work to share with you of what this might look like.
Thank you, Ms. Picardi. So I have two typed questions for the panel. The first asked about the flags that were shown on Mr. Paczynski, I believe it was slide 10, when a parent would look up in PowerSchool. There were a few asterisks in yellow. Could you just give an explanation on what those mean?
Yep. So I can speak to that for a moment. And may look a little different for which school your child is enrolled in. Currently, again, at the bottom, when you're in the quick lookup screen, or I'm sorry, in the score screen, you will see a at the bottom of it, something explaining what each one is. I believe at the SBA, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Millett, I do believe you'll see all asterisks saying that they have been excluded from final grading. Again, excluded from final grading for this, again, none of these assignments are being numerically averaged together for a final grade. So it's quite possible you're going to see excluded. You'll also see some other flags that might say exempt, where a teacher might say this does not count towards the final for whatever reason. You'll also, so excluded, exempt, missing. So if a student has not turned it in, or it is missing for whatever reason, I believe that is a exclamation mark. And there's also a collected. Now, something like the skills and practice, which, you know, may be a quick do now at the beginning of class. It may be a journal entry. It might not be, it might just be something more to engage the student, to prepare them for learning for that lesson. That may be something that the teacher is not necessarily assessing as much as saying it's going to go towards the habit of work that the student has actually completed it. So again, I apologize that I don't have the actual, I don't want to call it a rubric, but the key underneath saying what each one is. In this case, though, I do know that the yellow snowflake type thing is saying that it has been excluded from the final average. Again, in this case, there is no final average. That teachers will take a look at the formatives, the skills and practice, and the summatives, and most likely the summative assessment is going to be what has the most weight on the final letter grade, in this case being an AC.
Thanks, Mr. Paczynski. I have another type question. It looked like you flagged this one, Ms. Willett. Are we getting report cards for every trimester?
Yes, so a report card will be produced every, or I should say progress reports will also be sent home every, during every trimester, and report cards will also be produced every trimester as well. And we'll also be sending habits of work reports home with the report cards. And I would just like to remind families and caregivers that in PowerSchool, it's really important, as Mr. Paczynski showed you on those quick lookups, not to just look at the quick lookup screen where you see that final report of what the student's grade is, but to click into each subject area to get a sense of what assignments might be missing or how your student's progress is. Those quick lookup pages are stagnant, they're dormant. They don't get updated until the teacher updates those. So whatever was sent home on that progress report will stay there for a few weeks until the teacher goes in after the next summative or has some more information to update that page. So it's not like it was last year when a teacher would enter in a quiz or a homework assignment and it would average it together and automatically update that quick lookup page. So those things have to be manually updated. So it's really important to click into each subject area and check out that individual subject area and see the progress your student is making and see what assignments might be missing, or if they're NAs or NYs, or maybe ECs, or whatever the subject or the scoring is, and have a conversation with your child. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email the teacher, call the school, and teachers are available for virtual office hours in the afternoons most days. And they're always able to answer an email, give you a call. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask a question.
And to piggyback on top of that, Ms. Willett, I just want to reiterate and remind parents that this year that reports are being sent home electronically. Again, you should have received one on Friday from your child for the progress report, as well as the rubric and a letter about tonight. If you did not receive one for any reason, again, please reach out to the school to update your information. And also to go back to the honors distinction, I don't know if Joanne or Heather, I believe one had shared an example of with a math with graphing, I believe. Is there someone that would be able to share that a little bit as far as a student had completed an assignment, but the teacher felt this really demonstrated exceeding the competency?
Right, and it actually was one of my teachers who I believe is here tonight, actually, but he was explaining to me that the students were asked to graph coordinates, I believe, on a coordinate plane, and they were doing some fractions, and then one student actually was able to graph, I believe it was an improper fraction, which took this, and students hadn't even been instructed on that, so that sort of exceeded the competency because it wasn't even something that had yet been instructed. So the student not only was able to successfully graph the points, but then was able to take the improper fraction and then successfully plot those points as well. So that's one small example of exceeding the competency. But there will be, an opportunity in December. We plan to have some examples of student work and showing a demonstration of what work would look like for students who would meet the competency, and then what it would look like in an English or social studies class, or even in an art class, of when students take that work a little bit further and demonstrate that they have a real deep understanding of that content area.
That's actually a really great segue to the next question that I just saw pop up in the chat, which is, are the small groups only for kids that need help? And so there's been a lot of discussion around the small group time, and we will be addressing this on an individual school basis as well. But teachers are scheduling these times for students. So this is a block of time, although it says asynchronous learning on your child or student's schedule that they received, it's pretty flexible in terms of when they might have small group time, but it is a time that they're expected to be with their teacher. That does apply to every student. It's our great belief that every single student deserves some small group time with their teachers. And so it's flexible in that they may be with the teacher for math this week or this Tuesday, and then on Thursday they might be with their social studies teacher for something else. This is not only for students that are struggling though. And so when we say that the small groups are for kids that need help, it may be that they need help broadening their depth of knowledge because they are trying to exceed the competency as well. And so this is time that is built into their day. The students are expected to be on task doing schoolwork until 2 o'clock every single day. I know there's been some questions from parents in regard to what the small group time means. Every morning in advisory, the students are reminded of their small group time by their teachers, and it is designed to give them that platform with their teacher in a small group. It's usually 5 students or less, where they can address their very specific needs on this continuum of mastery towards these standards. So extra help, yes, but the entire spectrum of help, from kids that really need some reinforcement with the entry level part of the standard to kids all the way on the other side that really are trying to broaden their mastery, and kids that fall all along that spectrum within the middle.
We have another live question from Chandani Pradhan. Chandani?
So questions about the kids in asynchronous time. They finish the homework, whatever the teacher gave them. They finish in a time. But in asynchronous time, my son, the kids, I don't think so everybody is gonna be there. So what do you suggest for them to do on those time if they finish the work? Is there anything else? I mean, they can interact with the teacher that time?
Each student's asynchronous time schedule is a little bit different, but the teachers are accessible throughout the entire day. So if your child, your son, is finished with all of his work for that day and the following day, because you're seeing a teacher Monday and Wednesday. Let's say that there's an ELA class that runs live synchronously Monday and Wednesday. He should have work that will take him through Monday, and he should have some asynchronous assignments. If he's finished with those and he wants access to work with the teacher live, there is always one of his teachers available during asynchronous time to either do small groups, and then the teachers are available from 2:05 until 2:20 every single day for their virtual office hours. So he can pop in and get access to the teachers at that time every day as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I always feel like that might be a great time to review the work with the teacher, get some feedback, maybe edit some things, especially if the student's ahead of the game. They have some time to implement whatever the feedback is that the teacher gives them if they pop into a small group or something like that.
So Dr. Galucci, I just saw another question pop up. Is it obligatory to go to the class that we're talking about? And the class in question is the small group time. Yes, if the child has been asked by the teacher, this would be similar to, I hate to say going after school or anything like that, but if the student missed some time for any reason earlier in the class, or they have not yet attempted an assignment or not yet achieved the competency or approaching, and the teacher has scheduled the student into that time, it is expected that your child would go to that class and goes to that class. If they had not gone to that class, the teacher is most likely reaching out to the student as well as to the parent, and as well as if this happens again, administration will most likely be reaching out, because we really are pushing. We want the expectations. We know it's difficult for everyone these days, but the expectation is to do our best for our students, to provide them the supports that they need. And if the child has been identified as, or I don't even want to say identified, but scheduled into that time, the expectation is that they do attend that time.
Right, and some students are not just being scheduled in because they're falling behind. It's also an opportunity for extension activities and to push some students further. So teachers are meeting weekly and as teams and dividing students up as to which teachers are taking which students. So it's not always just students that are maybe behind or missing things. It could be they want to pull 6 or 8 students and do some challenging work, or pull them together to do exploratory work in a certain area or push their thinking a little bit. So they could be pulled for small group instruction for a number of reasons.
And I just wanted to highlight, we have an SBA educator in the chat that outlined his use of small group time. And he says that he does use it for remediation, but he also uses it to do some higher level math with students who have proved themselves in class to be ready for that higher level math. So certainly that small group time, it's a defined time, but in terms of what the content is during that time, we'd like all students to be attending that time and checking in with their teacher beyond the scheduled class, whether it's for remediation or extra help, or if it's on getting some rigorous work that maybe challenges them beyond the typical assignment in that class.
Yeah, the great thing about that small group instruction is it's flexible and we can do different configurations of students. And that's why we've left that flexible at this time, to allow teachers to really meet students where they're at and provide them what they need.
I guess in the absence of another question right now, I would just build on that by saying that all of the teachers have been teamed this year. And so every single week on Monday, those teachers meet and they talk about all of the students that they have in common. So this is something new to some of the schools. I know it's new at the RMA, and it's a result of this remote learning model that we're in, but it is one of the highlights of this model, in that the teachers really get to know your students extremely well, and they share the same students. So the core teachers, English, math, social studies, science, have the same set of students. And so we get to really get a good idea as to what the needs are from week to week when creating these small groups.
Right. Checking the chat, the Q&A, and the hand raising. It doesn't seem like there's any further questions. So I want to thank everyone that joined us tonight. I want to thank our presenters, Ms. Willett, Mr. Paczynski, Ms. Bob, Ms. Youssef, and Ms. Cardona for translating. Thank you very much. And certainly if you have questions beyond this town hall, you're always welcome to reach out to your child's school, and we will certainly get those questions answered for you. There was an earlier question about difficulty logging into PowerSchool, and the person had gone through the PowerSchool help ticket and still was not able to log in. The lights are going out. So if that is the case, please reach out to your child's school, and we can navigate that for you if you're not getting the help ticket support that you put in for. I want to once again thank everyone. I hope you have a great evening, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.